Hi, let's create the next component in this portfolio application. This new component is going to be one called projects, and its job is going to be to showcase a list of projects that you've created. Now, this is one of the best ways to pitch yourself as a software engineer and React developer. Before we actually make the component though, this one is going to require a short setup. Each project is going to have an image, title, description, and link. First up, let's get the images for the projects. Now you should be able to download the 3 images I'll be using in this video within the resources section of this lecture, or you can head to the official course repository at github.com/15dclats/react-bootcamp. Go ahead and open up the portfolio section, go to source and then assets, and then you're going to find a bunch of files for you to download for a new source assets section within the portfolio project. Now, the main files that you want for this video are project 1, project 2, and project 3. But while you're here, you might as well download the whole directory since we'll be using each of these assets in videos throughout the rest of this section. Okay, go ahead and pause here and then resume once you have the assets downloaded. Great. Once you have the assets downloaded, create a new assets directory within the source folder of the project. So make sure you have source and then assets, and then move all the downloaded files into the new source assets directory. Cool. Once you have all of this, we're going to set up a base data file, which will be used for the new project section. As mentioned before, each project is going to have its image, its title, link, and description. And we're going to capture all of this information in a new generic projects.js file. In addition, let's also make a data directory within the source folder that we can use to hold data such as this one. So within data, make a projects.js file. We're going to start by importing each of the project images as resources within here. So first we can import the project 1 resource, and this is going to be from the assets directory located one directory back with .. And the first one is project1.png. We're going to do the same thing for project 2 and project 3, so go ahead and copy the line a couple times. And now we're importing project 2 from .. assets project2.png. And the last one is project 3. So import that from .. assets/project3.png. With all the project assets available for the images, I'm going to make a projects array. Notice that all the letters in this variable name are uppercase. This is called the screen case syntax. And the convention for global values in a JavaScript project is to use this screen case syntax. So each letter is uppercase. The project array itself is going to be a collection of objects that each represent an individual project. For now, there's going to be 3 projects. And to start, I'm going to write the data for one project so that way you get a sense of the layout. First up, make an object with a pair of curly braces, and then this one is going to have a title field called example React application. It also is going to have a description, and in this one, I'll make the description a rather long string, so bear with me as I type it, and this says a React app that I built involving JS and core web dev concepts. All right, cool. It barely fits on the screen. The link for this is going to be an online link. And for this, you can use any link that you have online for perhaps a GitHub repo that you have hosted. But I'm going to use /15dcats/example. And then the final part is an image. And this first one is going to have the project 1 image. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same for 2 more projects. But rather than waiting for me to finish typing this out, I'm going to use some movie magic to jump ahead to when I've finished writing out the data. The next 2 projects are going to be an example API and another example, an operating system's final project. Once the data is displayed, you're going to want to pause the video so that you have a chance to write all the data down yourself before I continue on with creating the actual component. All right, there it is in full. You can go ahead and type this out, or you can also head to the actual course repository and then find this file and download it in its completion. Before we move on from this though, let's give each project an ID so that each object can be uniquely identified. Now, even though they have a different combination of title, description, image, etc., The traditional way to distinguish similar items within an array is with an ID field. So at the top of these, let's go ahead and give each one an ID that we're going to increment one at a time. So the first one has the ID of 1, the second one 2, and the third one 3. Finally, we're going to make this overall projects available to the rest of the code base with an export default line that shares this projects array. So add an export default, and this will share the projects array with the rest of the code base. Nice. Once you have all of that, you can finally move on to the component code. All right, so make a new projects.js file in the actual source directory. So make sure it's a capital P this time for source/projects.js. In here, let's import React and the component class from the React module. So import React, and then in a pair of curly braces and a comma, have the component class, and this is from the React module. Now we're also going to import the projects array from the local ./data directory and the projects file that we just created. All right. And then we can make the project component itself, which should extend the component class from React. The class of projects is going to extend the component class. Let's start with the render method. And by default, we're going to want to return some JSX. And I'll reemphasize that it's crucial to have this return statement with the curly braces. It can often be forgotten, and it's hard to pinpoint that a missing return is the culprit of unexpected behavior when it's happening. We're going to have an overall div within here. So have a pair of div tags. And let's start with an h2 title. And this is going to say highlighted projects. Now, our objective is to render JSX for each of the project objects that is within this overall projects array. So we're going to add a new div to capture a group of project objects. So let's add a div over here. And within this div, we can manually write out JSX for each project in the list one at a time. So for example, we could write a div that uses some project 0 data. So we could access project 0. Right here, we could use projects index of 0 and then use the title. And we can do another one for projects 1.title and projects 2.title until we have all the projects within our array. With only 3 projects to render, this doesn't look so bad. But imagine if we had 5 or even 15 projects to display. This approach would be extremely painful with a lot of duplicated code, and it's definitely not scalable. Instead, we want to take a more programmatic approach and transform this projects array into an array of JSX similar to the one that we have right here. So let's replace this with an overall pair of curly braces where we can write some logic within the JSX. We're going to use the map function on the projects array to take the original array and transform it into a new one that consists of a bunch of JSX objects. So use projects.map. We can now use the map function to transform the project data items to individual pieces of JSX to render. So with that, we have a callback function to pass into the map. And the actual parameter to the callback function is each project one at a time. So it's going to use the first project and then the second project and the third project, firing this callback function one at a time. And for each item now, let's have the return statement. And this is going to return a div overall that renders the project object's title. So have a pair of curly braces and then render the project title. And this code is equivalent to what we had before. For each of the individual project items within the project's array, we're turning each one into a div that consists of its title. All right, nice. Before we can check this out, we're going to need to make sure that this component is included in the main application. So as the final line of the file, share the project's component across the code base with an export default line. So export default projects. And once you have all of the code, head back to the app.js file and then import the project's component. So import projects from the local projects file. So let's get the projects component. Let's place the projects component at the end of the main render method. So after this pair of curly braces, first let's have a horizontal ruler line element, which is going to add a horizontal line in the actual application. And then we can directly use a project's JSX as its own tag within the render method. All right, we're now ready to check out the new project's component code. Fire up the application in the command line if you haven't already with an npm run start. And once you've done so, head to the actual application at localhost 3000. And there it is, a new highlighted project section. There's the example React application, my API, and the operating system's final project. Cool. Now, if you open up the console, you're going to notice that there is this warning saying that each child in an array or iterator needs a key property. This is essentially React telling us that it needs a way to distinguish JSX that's generated by a map function. That way, under the hood, it can optimize the rendering of the JSX. Luckily, we gave each project data a unique ID field, so we can use the project.id as the key property for each generated piece of JSX. So back in the application code, in the projects.js component file, in the return div, let's add a key property, and this will be set to the project.id. As you save that, and you head back to the application, what you're going to find is that the error goes away. Nice. So this is a great start for the overall project section. Moving on from here though, let's display a lot more information for each project. After all, there's the description, link, and image that we can also include. Now, it'd be a bit cramped if we wrote all the JSX within the map function of the projects.js file. As the next step then, let's make a project component that will have the JSX to display all the project info itself. We'll then use a project component in this map function rather than the div we currently have. But there's a certain challenge with this. This project component is the one that has the data for the actual project objects. But if we create a separate project.js file for a project component, well, how is that new component going to know what information to display? Is it also going to have to import the project section? Well, spoiler alert, the answer to this is in the title of the next video. So without further ado, let's get to creating the project component and exploring a different way that components can get data. If you enjoy this content, head to davidtkatz.com. There, you'll find links to full courses, as well as to reach out and connect with me. For React and Redux in particular, you'll want to check out udemy.com/React Redux Bootcamp. This is a course I made to help you learn React and Redux the right way, and to turn you into React and Redux developer. Okay, see you in the next one.